What is going on, everybody? It's Nothing But Skills, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you my favorite farming build, my favorite PvE build in the game right now, because you can clear landmarks in about 2 to 3 minutes, and what that means is you can get a lot of loot really fast. And since we do know Gear 2.0 is coming, we want to value our time, right? We're trying to farm credits, we're trying to farm materials, we're trying to farm those high-end weapons, and the best way to do that is clearing a lot of enemies in a short amount of time, and this build is just that. And what's great about this build is I'm only using two different sets. I'm using Aces and 8 set, and then I'm using the Araldi set. So that means you only have to target farm 2 areas to fully build this set. And a lot of times you can buy those green pieces from the vendors. Definitely check out clan vendors, and then check out the DZ vendors. Miss Mendoza, the gun runner, usually sells green pieces. So those are some places you can start off, and then you can fill in the rest of this just by farming Araldi on your target farming map, or even farming where the green pieces are. Now, for all of you guys returning players, I really think this is a build that you guys can put together and still have some value about it, because I still think this build will be viable once we get into title update 8. Because we do know that we will have talents on the backpack and the chest piece, and then the gloves is the one piece you'll probably have to rotate out, right? But overall, you should be able to still run this build with some minor tweaks, but I still think Aces and 8s builds with the SVD is going to be good. Now, the weapon you're going to want to have is this SVD. It puts out a lot of damage, and then if you pair it up with the talent Lucky Shot, magazine capacity is increased by 20%. Missed shots from cover have a 100% chance to return the magazine. I love having optimized on here for that 15% weapon handling, and it just makes it a lot easier to handle, especially when you pair that up with the sharpshooter specialization. Now, the way we have this modded is we are running a C7-9 scope. Now, this gives us 5% damage to elites. I do have that paired up with the Nemesis, but if you don't have any exotics, don't worry about it. Don't worry about getting that Nemesis. You don't have to have it. This build will still hit really hard, but if you have the Nemesis, it'll hit just a little bit harder. Now, if you guys want, you guys can put this digital scope with the 45% headshot damage. I personally like the C7-9 scope for the 5% damage to elites. It's just a little easier to aim than scoping all the way in with that 45% headshot damage scope. So our damage on this is almost 100k with 260 RPM, and then we do have an 18 round mag. Now, for the muzzle, I am running the 5% damage to elites. If you're having trouble control this, put the stability mod on there. Now, I do pair this up with the Nemesis because of the holster talent preparation. You get that 15% headshot damage when you're scoped in with the SVD. For the pistol, I use the sharpshooter pistol, which is also going to give me 5% weapon handling when holstered. But it's time to get into the build. We are running 206k armor, 53k health, and for the mask, we're running the Aces and 8s 3-piece, right? So we're getting that 10% marksman rifle damage. We have flip a card shooting enemy with your marksman rifle, so the full house increases the magazine size by 100% for 10 seconds, 4 of a kind, 30% bonus armor for 10 seconds, and Aces and 8s, the next 5 bullets, 100% bonus damage. Now, you do have to have the sharpshooter specialization active for this set to work. So the rolls we have on here is 52% damage to elites, and I recently just got a mask that has crit chance on there, so you don't need that health. I'd rather roll the crit chance on there. And then we also have an offensive mod with 5% marksman rifle damage and 1% weapon damage. We are running a chest piece that has 15% weapon damage, 17.5% critical hit chance. This is an Araldi chest piece, 1 of 3 pieces. We have vigilance on here, gain 25% weapon damage. Taking damage disables this buff for 4 seconds. This does require 7 or more offensive, which we're going to have. Now, I do have the same chest piece that I swap out. I run, just depends on what I want to run. I run this chest piece right here too that has headshot damage, and then it has weapon damage. I actually got a new one, which I didn't record, that has 22% headshot damage. I rolled the 15% weapon damage on there. So you can play with what you want, and that one has perfect vigilance, which gains 30% weapon damage. So if you can get perfect vigilance, swap that out. If you can get vigilance like this, it'll do just fine. Don't worry about that too much. It is 5%, but it's not going to kill the build. Now, for the holster, we have our second piece of Aces and 8s. So we have 11% critical hit damage on here, 16% critical hit chance. We do have 2 offensive mods on here. One that's giving us marksman rifle damage, weapon damage, and another one that's giving us marksman rifle damage and weapon damage. So an additional 12% weapon damage on this build just from that holster. Now, for the knee pads, this is the 3rd piece of Aces. So we have critical hit chance rolled on here, We have an offensive mod slot for more marksman rifle damage, weapon damage, and damage to health. And then we have a defensive system mending mod on here with armor and total armor. If we get into the gloves, we are running a talent that's going to work really good with high crit chance, high crit damage. So that's why I am running these gloves. So for the gloves, we do have the second piece of virality. If you notice, we have 11% marksman rifle damage, but look, we have Obliterate on here. Depleting an enemy's armor grants 30% critical hit damage for 15 seconds. Now, if you don't want to use this talent, there's definitely a couple different talents you can throw in here. But since this build is built around crit chance, crit damage, I'll let you guys decide if you guys want to run Obliterate. If you decide to run not that much crit chance, well, you might not want to run this talent. But the way I have this build set up, it works perfect with this. And we'll see the numbers in just a second. Now, for the backpack, we are running the 3rd pieces of virality. So remember, like I told you, have to farm 3 pieces of virality and 3 pieces of aces. Now, this backpack is going to give us a 10% marksman rifle damage. We have weapon damage on here, critical hit damage, and then we have hard hitting for that 25% damage to elites. And then we also have sparked on here. Damaging enemies with skills or explosives grants 15% weapon damage. And we're going to be running the striker drone, so we always have spark procced. And that's why I say with this build, you just hit really hard. Now, to me, the hardest piece to really farm is really going to be the backpack, because you're really hoping for a hard hitting talent and you're hoping for a spark talent. And if you can get a better backpack, which I do have a better backpack with the offensive role at the bottom instead of the utility, that's definitely going to be better for you, right? So like this backpack right here, I could roll spark on it, but it has really low weapon damage, and then it has a really high crit chance. So ideally, I could still use this backpack and gain some more damage from running like a 6% offensive mod here, and then just roll sparked on there. So ideally, this is what you can do. I do have a better backpack. I just did not record it in this video. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is probably my favorite build to run, period. I do run a skill build that when I get really lazy and I just want to throw skills out and let it do the work, I do run that build to farm a lot. But recently, if you guys watched any of my streams, if you watched me play recently, when I do farm, I'm running this because I do like shooting my weapon. And this gives me that ability to shoot my weapon, hit really hard, and melt pretty much anything. And when you farm, time is crucial, right? Because time is money. If you can farm really fast, get a lot of gear, and drop those heavies, those name enemies fast, it's always going to be better, right? So that's just something for you guys to keep in mind when you're making a build. And then hopefully, if you guys haven't made this build, you try it out and you fall in love. So if we jump into the stats, we're going to see how much crit chance I have on this build. We're running 40% crit chance, 41% crit damage, plus an additional 30% crit damage when I break that armor. Remember that? We had 173% headshot damage, plus the 15% we get from the holster talent from the Nemesis, if you have the Nemesis. Don't worry if you don't. We do have 87% damage to elites on this build. And when I tell you this build hits really hard, it does. You pair that up with a striker drone. Well, the striker drone is there for not to hit damage, so it doesn't really matter, right? It's just there to proc spark. Remember, spark's going to give us an additional damage once we have a skill that causes damage, right? Or explosive damage too, but we're going to use this drone right here to cause that skill damage that's going to proc spark for us. The great thing about the sharpshooter specialization also is we do get a skill haste 80% mod slot, plus we get an 80% duration without having to run any skill power on this build. And then I always run it with the reviver hive because, you know, if you do go down, you're running solo, you'll revive yourself up. And you don't have to throw this down ahead. As soon as you get knocked down, you will get picked right back up. So if you guys are looking for a build that's going to be really good, that's going to drop enemies really fast, going to hit really hard, this is going to be the build for you. And the great thing about gear pieces is they're not really going anywhere. They're getting reworked, so we don't know how Aces is going to work in the next update. But having them isn't a bad idea to have a couple, at least one set, right? Now, for the Roddy pieces, I don't know what's going to happen to them. We do know that you will have a chest piece and a backpack with the talent. So depending on what talents we get and what talents we get to keep, who knows if this build will still be viable. But as of right now, if you're trying to farm really quick and you have time to farm for some green gear pieces, you have time to farm for Maradi pieces, which shouldn't be too hard. Get in a group, guys. Share these pieces around. Check the vendors. And then if you don't get what you need in the vendors, or if you get a couple pieces, then you know what you guys need. Head to Araldi. Head to the green little armor plate that you see on the map. Farm those areas, and hopefully you guys can knock this out pretty quick and have yourself a build that can run through almost anything in the Division 2. We are going to wrap up this video here. I do appreciate all the support you guys have been showing this channel. Don't forget, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a thumbs up. As always, if you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, so when I release a video, you guys get notified. I appreciate the support, everybody, but until the next Division 2 video, nothing but skills is out.